The Emperor of Mankind, often referred to by his faithful as the God Emperor, the Master of Mankind, or simply the Emperor, and who sometimes referred to himself as Revelation, known to the forces of chaos as the False Emperor or the Corpse Emperor, is the immortal, perpetual and psyker who serves as the reigning monarch of the Imperium of Man, and is described by the Imperial Ecclesiarchy and the Imperial Cult as the father, guardian, and god of humanity. The Chaos Gods and the Daemons of the Warp refer to him as the Anathema, for he is the greatest embodiment of universal order in the galaxy today, and the most potent foe of chaos in existence. He was, and remains, the most powerful human psyker to have ever been born. He has sat immobile, his body slowly crumbling, within the Golden Throne of Terror for over 10,000 standard years. Although once a living man, his shattered, decaying body can no longer support life, and it is kept intact only by the cybernetic mechanisms of the Golden Throne and a potent mind itself sustained by the daily sacrifice of thousands of lives. The Emperor chose to sacrifice his immortal life at the end of the Horus Heresy in the service and protection of mankind. To humanity's countless trillions across the galaxy-spanning Imperium, he is nothing less than God. Through his Imperium, humanity is united and remains one of the most powerful, intelligent species in the Milky Way galaxy, as well as its most dominant in terms of both population and territory held. United under one government, mankind is able to survive the myriad of deadly threats it faces from aliens, the forces of chaos, and the traitors, heretics, and mutants that lie within the Imperium's boundaries. The Imperium's rule, carried on in the Emperor's name since the end of the Horus Heresy by the High Lords of Terror and a multitude of imperial organizations, has been long, oppressive, and necessarily harsh. It has also resulted in technological and cultural stagnation and a regression into tyranny, superstition, and religious obfuscation and intolerance that would have horrified the Emperor. Though he is no longer responsive to external stimuli, the Emperor still lies at the very heart of the Imperium's continued existence. Although he cannot be directly involved in the day-to-day running of humanity's galactic government, his existence on the Golden Throne is vital to sustaining the Imperium, since his powerful mind's presence in the Immaterium maintains and directs the Astronomicon, the psychic beacon that makes possible faster-than-light warp travel and is vital to Imperial shipping, transportation, commerce, and communication. However, the maintenance of this beacon requires the aid of other psykers, whose life forces are slowly drained away by the Emperor to power the beacon. 1,000 psykers a day give their lives to maintain the Emperor's psychic strength. He is said to still guide his race through the psychically reactive divination tool known as the Emperor's Tarot, which select psykers can consult to gain a glimpse of the future and the Emperor's will. He is also said to constantly battle the Chaos Gods in the Warp and prevent their further intrusion upon the material universe. His mind must remain vigilant at all times throughout the entire Imperium to safeguard the human race and to offer his protection to the faithful. Above all else, it is mankind's collective belief in the Emperor's divinity that serves as its greatest protection from chaos and the other hideous dangers that plague the galaxy. As the Imperial Creed has taught for over 10,000 standard years, the Emperor protects. This discusses material that was once considered canon, but whose canonicity may now be questionable. The Emperor is the collective reincarnation of all the shamans of Neolithic humanity's various peoples, the first human psykers. The foul warp entities that would become the four great powers of chaos had not yet fully formed when the Emperor was born on Old Earth during prehistoric times before even the Age of Terror, somewhere in ancient central Anatolia, modern Turkey, in the 8th millennium BC. But even before the birth of the Emperor, as humanity grew and progressed, the Immaterium began to become increasingly disturbed by the dark undercurrents of humanity's collective psyche, and the shamans began to lose their former ability to reincarnate into new bodies. Instead, upon dying, their souls were consumed by the entities and daemons of the warp. Eventually, the shamans of humanity, unable to reincarnate, would become extinct, and without the shamans and their psychic abilities to guide the race, humanity would inevitably fall prey to the corruptions of chaos. In these ancient days, all the shamans of Earth gathered in a grand conclave to decide what must be done to stave off the day when they had all been consumed by the warp. In the end, the shamans decided to pool their collective psychic energies by reincarnating as a single soul in a single human body to create an individual they called the New Man. The thousands of shamans, as one, took poison, and as one, they died, their souls flowing into the Immaterium in a rush of psychic power that overwhelmed those daemons who sought to feast upon it with a cleansing, purifying fire, a flame imperishable that became one soul out of many. A standard year later, the child who would become the Emperor was born in a Neolithic settlement of Anatolian herders and farmers of a normal mother and father. His psychic power was so great that its energies altered his genome and physiology in the womb and rendered him immortal, so he would no longer need to reincarnate and could not be assaulted by the daemonic creatures of the Immaterium upon his death. As he grew older, his potent psychic powers began to manifest. For 38,000 Terran years, he wandered over the earth and throughout human history. He travelled among the different peoples of mankind. While he had first been only an observer of mankind's triumphs and follies, he soon began to help where he could, using his ancient wisdom to spread efficient government, crop management, animal husbandry, technology, and peace. He used his influence carefully, at first adopting only the guise of a normal man, and without revealing his true nature. As the millennia passed, the man who would become the Emperor watched the human species develop. He travelled the entire globe, watching and helping, sometimes adopting the persona of a great leader or advisor. Many of the guises he adopted were humble, others became monumental figures of world history or religion. At times of crisis, he would be there, steering humanity along a narrow path to survival that only he could see. As humanity prospered and advanced over the millennia, the warp became increasingly disturbed. The man who would become the Emperor was aware of how the extreme sides of the human character were feeding the nascent chaos powers. Despite his best efforts to promote peace and harmony across Old Earth, the instinctive values of martial honor, ambition, defiance, and self-satisfaction could never be eradicated from the human character. Some of the New Man's plans proved less than successful. Seeds of wisdom often failed to flourish or grew into uncontrollable monstrosities, leading to eras of persecution and war. The Chaos Gods sensed the presence of the New Man, the Anathema as they would name him, and his efforts to curb their own power and growth. Even before they became fully conscious in the Immaterium, the ruinous powers recognized the man who would become the Emperor as their greatest enemy. Khorne was the first of the four major Chaos Gods to wake fully, and an era of wars and conflict soon raged across the globe to herald his birth. Tzeentch was the next, and nations and politics soon grew to maturity with all of their implicit intrigues and double dealings. Nurgle was the third to awake, and plagues swept across the Old Earth's continents, claiming many souls for the Lord of Decay. By the end of the European Middle Ages on Terra, all three of these Chaos Gods had awoken to full consciousness. The fourth, Slaanesh, still slumbered, to be awakened by the follies of a different species, the Eldari. But as the new man's psychic powers further developed, he became ever more aware of the terrible dangers that awaited mankind in the broader universe, and he resolved to do all in his power to defend and guide humanity towards a future as the predominant species in the galaxy. As more and more humans were born with the mutant psyker genes that granted them the ability to wield the potent power of the Imperium in the last centuries of the Dark Age of technology, and humanity suffered from the deadly effects of uncontrolled psykers that heralded the onset of the Age of Strife, the Emperor realized that he would have to take a more direct and open role in human affairs than ever before. Following the birth of Slaanesh after the fall of the Eldari in the 30th millennium, and the end of the warp storms that had prevented interstellar communication and travel from the Sol system, the Emperor determined that the time had come to directly steer the history of humanity once more, or see the human race ultimately go extinct due to the troubles of Old Night. In truth, the Emperor's origin and history prior to the start of his attempt to unify Terra during the Unification Wars is largely mysterious and unknown, though his immortality as a perpetual and extraordinary psychic abilities still define him. The first mention of the Emperor by that name in Imperial records is when he began the unification of Terra at the end of the Age of Strife in the late 29th millennium. Horus once mentioned that the Emperor lived in Anatolia in his own childhood, when describing his own first meeting with the Emperor. It is known that he had been born an immortal, perpetual, and ancient even before his ascension to the Golden Throne over 10,000 Terran years ago. The Emperor is the New Man, the first and greatest of the new mutant subspecies of human psykers. He is also the collective reincarnation of the extinct shamans, wizards, and wise men who had guided primitive humanity during prehistoric times. As the Emperor grew older, his powers began to manifest themselves and become more potent, and he gradually remembered his thousands of past lives, adding all of their knowledge and experience to his own. One account of the Emperor's origin goes so far as to say that he had mortal brothers and sisters, and claims that he was born in the 8th millennium BC. In a primitive Neolithic village along the banks of the Sakarya River in Anatolia. While he was still an adolescent, the Emperor's father was murdered by his uncle. While preparing his father's body for a primitive funeral ritual, he received a clairvoyant vision of how his father had been murdered. Later, the boy who would become the Emperor calmly approached his uncle and stopped his heart with a slight use of his telekinetic psychic abilities, displaying neither sorrow nor malice for the deed. According to the Emperor himself, this was the moment he realized that humanity needed law, order, and the guidance of a wise ruler to reach its full potential. At some time after his father's murder, he left his village for the first city of humanity, likely one of the Sumerian city-states of ancient Mesopotamia. For thousands of standard years before becoming the Emperor, he guided and watched humanity develop over the course of its history, assuming the guise of a large number of historical personages. He was aware that the darker extremes of human nature were feeding the growth of the Chaos Gods in the Warp, and so he sought to promote peace and harmony on Old Earth, and thereby curb the growth of the ruinous power's strength. Whatever his true origins, the man who would become the Emperor was the most powerful psyker ever born among humans. Before the Emperor began his rise to power, he was also an anonymous Perpetual, a member of a mutant branch of mankind gifted with effective immortality due to extremely rapid and efficient cellular regeneration. Whether this ability of the Perpetuals came about naturally or was artificially induced by some outside faction is unknown, but the Emperor was present during the time of humanity's prior star-spanning civilization in the period now named the Age of Technology by Imperial historians. He was known to associate with other Perpetuals like himself in that era. Among these was a woman named Alavia Sirika. Together, she, several other Perpetuals, and the man who would one day become the Emperor travelled to the night world of Moloch aboard a one-way voidcraft. There, they discovered a warp gate into the realm of chaos, which the future Emperor entered. Once within the Immaterium, he forged an unknown bargain with the Chaos Gods, and was imbued with new powers and the knowledge required to ultimately create the Primarchs, superhuman beings whose creation would combine techniques of arcane genetic science with the energies of the warp. The Emperor left Surika behind to look after the Molech Warp Gate until such time as that world could be safely protected by the coming of the future Imperium of Man. Despite their willingness to strike a bargain with him early on, the Chaos Gods themselves later recognized the Emperor as their greatest enemy among all the intelligent beings in the galaxy, naming him the Anathema. Only at the end of the Age of Strife did the Emperor emerge from obscurity to take a more direct hand in the future of humanity, conquering the warring factions of mankind's homeworld during the Unification Wars that began in the late 29th millennium and ended in 712 M30, with the establishment of his direct rule over Earth. The Emperor accepted the deaths of many of the innocents that resulted from his conquest with great remorse in order to achieve the greater good of unifying humanity and protecting it from the manifest predations of the warp. With the assistance of the ancient Mechanicum government on Mars, who joined with the Emperor and the people of Terra in the Treaty of Mars in 739 M41 that formally founded the Imperium of Man in the late 30th millennium, the Emperor created the first Space Marines and fleets of interstellar void ships that would carry his armies across galactic space. The objective was a great crusade that would unify all of the planets colonized by humanity during the Age of Technology prior to the Age of Strife into one Imperium of Man. The crusade would also subdue, destroy, or force into exile all intelligent alien races of the Milky Way. The galaxy was to become the Imperial Domain, the manifest destiny of humanity. Using the knowledge he had bargained for with the Dark Gods and Molech, the Emperor, during the Unification Wars, also created, with the aid of the scientists of his biotechnical division, the 20 superhuman Primarchs, from whom the Space Marines' gene seed was later developed, using his own DNA as the foundation of their undifferentiated genomes. He intended them to serve as his primary military commanders, diplomats, and consuls for the Great Crusade. The Chaos Gods, however, sought to thwart the Emperor's grand plan even before his gene son's gestation within his subterranean genetic laboratories deep beneath the future Imperial Palace on Earth were complete. The Primarchs were sucked into the warp through the will of the Chaos Gods while still in their gestation capsules, and scattered across the human-inhabited worlds of the galaxy. Even before their births, the Primarchs had already been touched by the power of chaos. During the course of the Great Crusade, all but 2 of the 20 Primarchs were successfully found and united with the Space Marine legions that had been created after their disappearances from the genetic material that they had left behind. As the Emperor travelled across the stars, some humans wanted to worship him as a god. However, he forbade this, proclaiming, "I am not a god. Rather than enslaving humanity, I want to free it from ignorance and superstition." However, Lorgar, the Primarch of the World-Bearers Legion, desperate to find some outlet for his belief that humanity must have a god to worship to be truly whole, gave in to the constant whispers of the Chaos Gods, and, after corrupting his legion to their service, sent his first chaplain, Erebus, to poison the minds of the other Primarchs and their legions. Just as the Imperium had reached its apex in the first decade of the 31st millennium, the Emperor's most trusted son, Primarch Horus of the Lunar Wolves Legion, later renamed the Sons of Horus, fell to chaos as a result of his own pride, need, and ambition. Horus betrayed the Emperor, and along with fully half the Space Marines legions and Imperial Army regiments, initiated a massive civil war for control of the galaxy. This rebellion is known to history as the Horus Heresy. Though the Emperor ultimately defeated Horus during the Traitor Legion's assault on Terra, he was all but slain in the battle after a crippling loss of limbs and mortal systemic damage. Only the life-supporting Golden Throne has sustained his living corpse in a kind of stasis, neither dead nor truly alive. Trapped within his prison of flesh, only the Emperor's mind is allowed to wander free within the Immaterium, still seeking to protect and guide humanity to an increasingly distant, better future. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give the video a like and make sure you subscribe to Jam Punch because I'm going to be releasing more and more Warhammer 40k lore videos. My name is George, this is Jam Punch, and I'll see you next time.